You spot a housefly on the kitchen table. You slowly raise your hand, calculate the angle, and prepare to strike. But by the time your hand slaps the counter, the fly is already hovering safely near the ceiling. That fly doesn't have supernatural reflexes, and it isn't predicting your movements. Because its brain processes visual information nearly 4 times faster than yours, your rapid, aggressive strike looks to the fly like an incredibly slow, easily avoidable drift. This reveals a strange truth about biology. 2 animals can occupy the exact same physical space, yet experience completely different temporal realities. The dog sleeping on your rug and the birds landing in your yard are operating on entirely different biological clocks. There is a hidden matrix of varying speeds layered all around us. Human time is not an objective reality. It is simply one specific channel on a biological television, and we are locked into our own broadcast. To understand how this works, we measure something called critical flicker fusion, or CFF. This is essentially the frame rate of an eye and brain. It's the exact speed at which rapid flashes of light blur together into a steady, continuous image. For a human, that threshold sits right around 60 flashes per second, or 60 hertz. A dog, however, takes in visual data about 25% faster. Their critical flicker fusion threshold sits closer to 80 hertz. When a dog leaps to catch a frisbee, that higher frame rate allows them to track the exact fast-moving trajectory of the plastic disc with a level of precision that humans simply cannot match. We have historical proof of this temporal divide right in our own living rooms. Older cathode ray tube televisions refresh their screens at exactly 60 hertz. To a human family gathered around the set, the broadcast looked perfectly smooth. But because a dog's 80 hertz threshold was faster than the TV's refresh rate, that same broadcast appeared as a jarring, aggressively flickering slideshow. What we perceive as seamless, continuous motion is entirely an illusion, strictly dictated by the biological limits of our own hardware. If seeing the world in high speed gives an animal a massive evolutionary advantage, it is worth asking why humans didn't evolve to do the same. The answer comes down to allometric scaling and the cost of energy. This scatter plot graphs metabolic rate and body size against visual processing speed. Notice how small-bodied animals cluster heavily at the extreme high-speed end of the scale. Processing visual information at a high frame rate requires a massive, constant burn of metabolic energy. Small prey animals sacrifice their energy efficiency to see fast enough to dodge predators. On the opposite end, massive animals like deep-sea sharks or starfish conserve their energy by relying on incredibly slow temporal processing. This chart shows the flicker fusion frequencies of fast-flying birds. Because species like the pied and collared flycatchers need to navigate through dense forest branches at high speeds, evolutionary pressure pushed their visual frame rates well past 140 hertz. But this biology has an unintended vulnerability. Modern LED city street lamps operate on alternating current power supplies, causing them to pulse at 50 to 60 hertz. To us, these streets look completely and steadily illuminated. Yet to those faster-seeing birds and pollinating insects, our artificial environment functions like a disorienting, rapidly strobing nightclub. The 60 Hz human baseline is a useful average, but it is not a perfectly fixed constant, even within your own body. Researchers at Cornell University recently mapped human time perception in sub-second intervals, discovering that our moment-to-moment experience of the present is directly linked to the physical beating of our hearts. Our cardiac pacemaker is not perfectly steady. The physical interval between heartbeats slightly lengthens and shortens. The researchers found that when the gap between a person's heartbeats lengthens, their perception of a brief sound's duration actually shrinks, and vice versa. The heart acts as an internal metronome, constantly warping our subjective experience of the present from one fraction of a second to the next. Time is not an objective river flowing at a steady universal pace. It is a fabricated illusion, heavily edited by an organism's metabolic rate, body size, and the speed at which its cellular hardware can recharge. Our present moment is simply an evolutionary trick, perfectly tuned to keep us alive, while leaving us entirely blind to the high-speed layers of reality unfolding right in front of us.